Let's see, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date, it is April 10th of 2022. It's 8 a.m. in the morning. We're getting a grocery delivery, a small order from Walmart. It'll be here about 9, so I'll have breakfast when it gets here. If they have TV turkey dinners. If not, I'll have something. Well, I don't know if you can notice any difference. I moved my computer over to this desk, and the computer was there. I think it's laying on the bed now, but then I'm going to put it in the closet. I'm not sure why I did this. It's because I have to be changing things, I guess. I haven't watched this video yet, but this guy makes really good videos. Well, if you're interested in radio and shortwave radio and that stuff like that, and we live in an apartment complex here, and I don't know how much this antenna cost, but we can't put it up here, but maybe one of these days I'll have a place to put up an antenna, and if I do, I'll put up an outside camera also, and I'll run it 24 hours a day. And I'll put up a weather station also, and probably have the camera, probably use the same camera but there's wildlife out where I think I'm going to be going, or we are going to be going. My daughter already owns the property. So anyway, I'd really like to have a good, and too, it's away from population. It's kind of sparse out there. So it'd be less radio frequency interference and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, I'm not sure if it's going to happen or not. Let's see what else. Okay, I switched cameras or monitors around. I've got this, I hope I don't drop this on myself and injure something that I need. Well, I actually don't need it, but this is a thing that blocks sound. I'm not sure exactly where I can, where I can put it, but I'm working on that. I've emptied half of the 20-gallon tank. I hope to have it out of here by tomorrow. And that's one sound. Of course, I've got everything, the air pump and everything on, so we're not going to have any more noise from that. What else? Oh, the plug that works with the Echo device. That's new, something that Amazon. Well, let's go to. Let's see. Let's go to Amazon. They'll probably be advertising right on their front page. These monitors, by the way, radio monitors, really nice. I ought to take and do a search and put, of course I'd probably forget the order, but how many? I must have had like 20 different kinds of, monitors or scanners or more. But now that you in all the metropolitan areas, for sure. Police departments and fire departments probably too. EMS have all gone where it's encoded. And when I was helping the Fort Worth PD a little bit with trying to get in people to do YouTube videos, or their own people to do YouTube videos and stuff for them. And also for their recruiting, especially of minorities. Happened to mention to, several of the police officers about not being able to receive, police communications because it's all encoded. And I didn't expect them to agree with me, but anyway, they're happy and they like it the way it is, where their communications isn't. My position is that they should have, definitely. I mean, if you're doing narcotics following people, if you're doing internal affairs investigations, if you're doing all this kind of stuff, yeah, you're not going to want to broadcast that out. But there should be stuff that can go out on it, like the general channel, I think. And I don't think very many police officers agree with me, but well, it wasn't recently, though. In the past, sometime back, I was talking to a police officer, and he said, well, people will find out where the patrol officer, is, and then they'll go and burglarize someplace or something. And I said, no, what you do is you put an officer out who's not, on that frequency, and also what you can do is just put an officer out if it's going to be, put an officer out, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can have him call in and say, I'm at, well, nobody would fall if you said, I'm at a gun shop, No, but if you say, I'm at such and such a store, the door can't be locked by me, call the owner and have him respond. And then, of course, this is all set up, it would be all set up. Then you'd have the dispatcher, not really call anybody. And then he would call back the officer and say, okay, well, the owner is such and such. It's going to be 45 minutes before he gets there. And then the officer could say, which is all, planned, well, I just can't stick around here for 45 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead, and patrol. And okay. And then, of course, if somebody decides to use that information and they show up, you just had to have a SWAT team or something in there and just start pounding on them for stupidity or something, when they come in. I'm joking about that part. No, I mean, there's things you can do if you want to be, but. But anyway, I think it was the first law about, I think it was like 1929 or whatever, the federal government had a law that communications, and of course that's before decoding. Well, you could have had decoding back then by using teletype, but anyway, I go into too much detail, really. Since 1929, the federal government, had passed a law stating that you could receive any communications that you could receive, without going on somebody's property and doing it. And if the people had it encoded, which they didn't do much, encoding back then, but if like a teletype thing, a commercial thing, a bank or something that was, anything that was encoded, if you broke the code, then, you could be prosecuted. But anything that was just transmitted in the clear, and that was the law up until cell phones came into existence. And when I used to like C-SPAN. Yeah, I think it was C-SPAN. The radio end, is that what they called it? Anyway, every morning, they would take calls and that kind of stuff. I never called except once. And this is before cell phones were released. Now they had phones, radio, telephones in somebody's, like a doctor, a lawyer, somebody with money. You could have this monstrous radio built, you know, with a headset or whatever. And then they came out with a few walkie-talkies that were like this. So anyway, the guy is interviewing a guy from the cell phone industry or whatever, and they're talking. And the guy says, well, you know, we need to have a law passed that you can't listen to, you know, the communications. You know, we don't want people spying on people or whatever. And of course, right away, I'm thinking, you know, hey, people have been able to, whatever you could pick up since 1929, and whatever. So, you know, so I called in. And this is about the first time I was a victim, I think. Of course, I didn't listen all the time. But I got sort of slapped down or whatever, and boing, I was disconnected right away. But anyway, I called in. I said, well, you know, the telephone, or the telephone people, what they need to do is encode their cell phone. And instead of making a law, making it where it was against the law for somebody to receive the communications, just spend the $1.50 or $2 or whatever it costs to put the little chip in there, and then people won't be able to, you know, won't be able to listen to it. And I mean, right away, I think the guy who was hosting it was probably a nice guy, because I'd listened to him before, you know, for NPR, not NPR, whatever it was, C-SPAN. But I think I could just tell he wanted a cell phone so bad. I'm sure, being in that, you know, work that he was doing, that'd be a great thing for him to have. But I think he just wanted one so bad. And this guy, like, his line was, well, you know, we've got the technology, we've got all this kind of stuff. The only thing stopping us from releasing it to the public is we have to do something to keep these people, make it a law that they can't listen in on our communications. And boom, I call in and say, well, just spend $1.50 or $2 and put a chip in the thing and encode it, and then you don't even have to worry about the people trying to pick up the communications. But by the way, when they did come out, the first ones that came out with, there was a law you couldn't, I guess, probably passed, because I don't think they would have done it, that you couldn't listen to it. But I knew a guy, I worked with a guy, and he had ham radio, and we both worked midnight shift. He didn't work as a security officer. He was a lab tech, I think. And then for a while, then he stopped doing it, but he'd walk, you know, there'd nobody around, you know, just the two of us or something. And he'd say, you want to listen to this? And a few times I stood there and listened, and my God, nobody in their right mind, unless you were, you know, doing 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, people on cell phones. It was I remember actually this one guy is calling this girl, woman or whatever, honey, where are you? You know, oh, I'm in the bedroom. Oh, what are you wearing? Well, I'm not wearing anything. Okay, well, unlock the front door. I'll be there in a few minutes. And it was always something like that. That for the, you know, the few times that I heard this guy listening to that, and I wouldn't want to. I'm sure there's always somebody, you know, who wants to. But anyway, of course, then they finally went to, you know, where it's all encoded. But how did I get on that subject? Oh, anyway. These scanners used to be really, really fantastic. Now they're expensive. And I've owned a bunch of them. I mean, when I started out with the first ones, you had to buy crystals. You know, you had to tell you had to go to Radio Shack, you know, and say, okay, I want it. And of course, each one of the cities where they had a Radio Shack or whatever, and the store would have the ones around, so you could go, and say, I need a frequency. I need the crystal for, and it'd be like $5 or something. But the radios, in the beginning, then you had to, then in the beginning there was, I never had one of those. There was, you could put a card in there, and you could fill it out like taking a test. You'd have to know and then you put it in, and it would take it. But anyway, but actually a scanner saved my life. I've mentioned that before many times. I'll mention it again and make it brief. I was working at a hospital and had a Radio Shack 4-channel scanner. I had bought 4. Oh, there's another story, remind me, that goes with this. Had a scanner, and it had 4 crystals in it that I had purchased. The Kansas City, Missouri tactical channel, and whatever zone I was in, I can't remember now if it was center zone. Anyway, there was 4 crystals, and of course I just had on the frequency where I was. I can't describe I've tried. I'm not. Well, it takes a little bit to describe, but there's a street right next to the hospital, and then there's a hospital parking lot. The street was. Well, I don't want to go into it. It was really narrow to come through it, because right on the other side of Linwood, it was 2 lanes, there. But when it got to the hospital, because of this parking lot and whatever, it became immediately a one-way street with cars. Anyway, trust me. But anyway, I was going to go across the street on the other side, walk up to the door of the hospital. This was the daytime. But I moved around. I didn't just sit in the shack out there or whatever. So I wanted to cross the street, make sure nobody had, because there was a little angle there, maybe make sure nobody was doing something they shouldn't be doing, and make sure that nobody fell down off their crutches or whatever. So I came right up to the curb, and then I heard, I forget let's say 133, car 133. So the street is Wabash. So I'm stepping up, and I put my foot out, and then I heard 133, car chase, Linwood and Wabash. And of course I stopped, and I wasn't in the street then, and I thought, this is Linwood and Wabash, and then the car he was being chased, it went by. If that call hadn't gone out on the radio, I would have been in front of that car for sure, and there wouldn't have been any place for me to go. I'd have been hit, knocked up in the air. I'd have been knocked maybe into the hospital or back into the parking lot, or I'd have flipped up, and the police car who was right behind him, would have hit me. I might have got hit by the guy being chased, and then hit by the police officer who was chasing him. And then when I'm stepping back and thinking, wow, that was close. Down at the end of the block, the police officer, had time to hit his siren, and lights, I guess. And then I heard a little crash. Nobody was, the guy crashed that was being chased. Another time, I worked full-time hospital security, and then I also worked contract security for many years. So I had 2 jobs. Contract security didn't pay all that well. But the company that I was working for, that I hired in at, I think they put me someplace for like a week or 2, I can't remember. And then they called me and said, come into the office. So I went into the office, and they said, okay, we're sending you out to Unity Village. That's a town. Unity Village Religion. They have a town. Not big, but a town. You'll be going out there, and you'll be a police officer. They have 1 full-time police officer, who works actually for Unity Village. And then we have 2, I think, but not at the same time, of Pinkerton or Burns or Wells Fargo or who in the ever hell the company was at that time. And so you'd be going out there, and I'm going to send you out, and the guy who's been working it full-time, because we're having trouble getting a guy to replace him. He's working overtime and costing the company the guard company money, you know. So I was told what time and everything to be there. So I go out there early, and the guy who's supposed to show me for 8 hours, you know, what he does, you know, and the layout of I've never had driven into Unity Village. No reason to go there. I've already been saved. So I drive down and locate him, and he didn't have any explanation for why wasn't he there to meet me. He didn't. There was nothing, you know, going on. So no, yeah. Since I knew I was going to be working there, I went and purchased a frequency, you know, crystal for the Unity Village Police Department. I had it in my 4-pi scanner, you know, but so I went and looked for this guy. Of course, I turned my scanner off in my pocket, and so I found this guy, and he says, "Don't ever do this again." And I said, "Do what?" He says, "You're not supposed to be driving around through here." And I said, "Well, you're supposed to be showing me." And he said, "Well, don't come looking for me." And I said, "Why, is there some kind of problem?" He said, "Yeah, they called me on the radio and they told me a suspicious party was driving, you know." He's a liar, and you know. So that day, then he showed me around, but he told me to stay in the car and not get out. And then he got out and talked to people, and I could sometimes hear him, you know, be somebody who was well, these were all people who worked there and had some type of position or whatever. I heard some of them say, "Oh, is this a new security?" And he said, "Nope. And he didn't tell me anything, and he didn't tell me anything, didn't show me anything. And then of course he had lied to me about that. And then I knew what the situation was, because he mentioned, "I've been working out here for, you know, X number of months or something, and I want to work every day out here, and they want to get a they want to get a replacement, so I have to be off a couple of days." And I thought, okay. I thought I should just go into the company and say, "Listen, put me someplace else. I don't want to play these fucking games. This guy out here does not want to be, doesn't want somebody who's trained and who can relieve him, and he's not going to train anybody, and he's going to report those, make up some reports that whoever goes out there isn't any good." So but I didn't. I just thought, well, so I forget. I think I worked about a week or two out there, alone, and I'm sure every day when he came back to work that he wrote some kind of report or something and said, "Oh, I got bad vibes on this guy," or so and so said that he doesn't like that guy, or what. So I got a call, and they said, "Okay, we're moving you someplace else." And I didn't even explain. I just said, "Fine, to hell with it." But might have been a good thing for, actually, because he had worked out there a long time, and with me going out there, it'd take a long time for me to get to know everybody that he knew, especially since he didn't introduce me to anybody, and especially since he didn't try to make it even. But what happened, not long after I was pulled out of there, somebody who I think had worked for Unity Village, and he didn't get promoted to like the chief engineer or something or other. Well, let me move back a little bit. This guy who didn't want to be relieved, he was patrolling, and he saw by the engineering department or whatever a car that was, I'm not sure if he'd never seen it before, but he knew it shouldn't be there. And so he sat there and waited, I guess, a little bit. And then I guess a guy come running out of there and jumped in the car and took off. The guy had just murdered this other guy. because of a job that he didn't get. And the guy took off, and the security officer then with the Unity Village police car was able to, call on the radio, not to the Unity Village police because there wasn't anybody, but to the Lee Summit police, and also probably the Highway Patrol or Jackson County or something. But anyway, he took off after him, and then the guy left the Unity Village, property, and went off the road and crashed his car. So the police and everything, show up, and the Unity Village, of course, police officer explains, what happened, and says, either I know the guy or I don't know the guy, or something, something suspicious or something like that. So the police, I'm not sure if it was the Unity Village where the car crashed, they find a gun there. And so the Unity Village police officer goes back to Unity Village and goes to that building, goes in and finds the guy dead. That may have been a good thing. I would probably not would have known that that it was unusual for a car to be parked where that car was parked or something like that. So the guy was an asshole, but that worked out. It didn't save a life or anything, and I think this other guy was so stupid that it wouldn't have been, if he hadn't been caught that way, he'd have been caught, because I think he made threats. He wanted that job, and if he didn't get the job, there'd be a rep. So anyway, it's 8:28. I guess I better get ready for a food delivery. Anyway, these scanners are really... now I wanted to show you something else, wasn't it? What did I want to show you? And I got sidetracked. Something that I told you was nice. Can't remember what it was. Well, anyway, you got a nice story. Thank you very much for watching. Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Thanks very much for watching.